righty, good afternoon, everybody, or morning, depending on where you're at within the United States. My name is Jonathan Maddock. I am a trainer here at Redtail Technology. Welcome back to another weekly Redtail Continuing Education webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about a Redtail Essential, which is activities within your CRM. We know that there's a lot of ways for you to go ahead and track things like your tasks, your meetings, your phone calls, and within Redtail, we call those activities. Now, today I'm not going to be necessarily covering a whole lot of process. I want to really try to be focusing on functionality and what the Redtail CRM offers, and then based off of that, you guys can take that information and go back and kind of build a process around it. There's not necessarily one perfect way to go about something. I've seen a number of different offices use them in some very creative ways. And I always like to say, if it works for you, continue doing it. So to go ahead and get started, I believe that when we talk about activities, you somewhat have to talk about notes. And the reason why is because generally there's going to stem something that's going to cause you to create some sort of activity, right? Or a task or a phone call, or maybe some sort of meeting that you're going to go ahead and schedule. And so with that being said, what I like to go ahead and just show you is that you can go ahead and create a note. And then from that note, you have the functionality and you have the ability to go ahead and create a follow-up activity after. And in doing so, it's actually going to bring over a lot of that note information and any other fields you may have filled out right in within the activity to kind of give you a really smooth transition and a real nice flow. So we're going to go ahead and get into a contact record. So once you're in a contact record, what I want to go ahead and do is I want to go ahead and create a note. So I have the ability to go ahead and create a note from either the plus sign up here in the top right-hand corner, or if I select the latest notes section, I go ahead and add a note. We also have the ability to see our activities within the contact record or our latest activities right here in the center as well. So we have our past due and next 30 days. This is everything that is going to be coming up in the next 30 days, or that anything is past due specifically for this client. Now, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to hit add note here. And we're going to go ahead and just drop in a scenario. So what you see here is we talked to Corey. He just had a baby boy, which is congratulations to him. And he wants to go ahead and take a look at, increasing his life insurance policy that he has with us. Obviously, there's so many other ways that you would possibly take notes down. But what I want to show here is that we're going to go ahead and take a note, and then we're going to go ahead and create a follow-up activity based off of this. And we're going to see all that functionality that's going to come over with that when I create that activity. So we'll go ahead and put in the note here. We can go ahead and categorize the note. We can notify a user, or we can notify a specific team. We can copy to another contact, which I'm going to go ahead and put his wife here because that's going to be important to us. We'll go ahead and select Topanga. And now what I'm going to go ahead and do, which is the most important part of this whole thing, is that I can go ahead and check this box that says create follow-up activity. This is my big hooray right here, is because I can go ahead and create a note, check this box. I can put in any information that I wanted here. And then it's actually going to go ahead and once I save the note, it's going to save the note to the contact record, and it's going to immediately push me to the activity screen. All right, so what's going to happen is you'll see that the note was created. It's on the latest notes, and it immediately pushes me over to the activity details. From there, what we can go ahead and do is we can go ahead and start filling out this activity. Now, again, activities are going to be best used to go ahead and schedule any tasks, meetings, or phone calls, or really anything that we want to go ahead and put onto the calendar, because activities are going to be things that we're going to place on the calendar. So what you'll see here is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click here. I'm going to set this the subject, which is probably going to be insurance planning meeting. I think that's probably a pretty good one. And then as we kind of take a look at some of the features that we have here is we can set a date. And so with a start date and an end date, we have a start time or an end time. Now, what you'll see here is as I'm scrolling over here, you'll see that it has this big, X'd out where I'm not able to select anything. And the reason why is because I have this box checked right here that says all day. Now, when I think of, the way that you should be thinking about all day is it's a task or it's an activity that needs to get done, but there's no real start time or end time. It just needs to get done sometime during the day. And once we get into the calendar, which I'll go ahead and start opening up now, what we will be able to see that base, we'll see those all day events up there at the top versus within the day of that time of 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock or whatever it may be. So here, Corey in his note, which we can actually take a look with here, he said that May 10th at 1 p.m. was going to work best for him. We had the day open, we had that time open, so we'll go ahead and select May 10th from the picker, and we'll put 1 p.m. and we'll go ahead and change this to 1. We'll change this to p.m. and probably an hour is going to do perfectly fine. So we also have the ability, as we kind of continue on, we have the ability to go ahead and categorize our activities. Now, this is a customizable list. These 4 are going to be the default. So appointment, phone call, task, and unassigned are going to be system defaults. Then what you have to do outside of that is you have a customizable list that you can go ahead and create. This is going to be done in the database lists. If you have any questions about that, there's a ton of videos on our help desk that will go ahead and help you set those up. But what I want to point out about type and even category is I always think of type as a way for you to kind of, how are you going to meet with the client, right? So if I'm going to have an insurance planning meeting, or I'm going to have a meeting, that is probably going to be an appointment, right? So it's not going to be a task. It's not going to be, a holiday or anything like that. It's going to be a meeting. So the way in which I'm going to meet with the client, I always look at as the type. Now, the category or the subject of the meeting that I'm going to have, which in this example is a client meeting, the subject is going to be more of the contents of the meeting or the activity. What am I going to be talking about, right? Is it general? Is it about a specific business type? Whatever it may be, you can go ahead and use categories to go ahead and select that. Now, again, you'll see we have 5 system types. It's a customizable list. This list shares the same list as note category. So if anybody's using note categories, this is going to be the same the same list. So you can go ahead and select which one you'd like. For here, I'm going to go ahead and say business insurance. So it kind of gives me a pretty good understanding of what we're going to talk about. Then as we scroll down, we have location. If you're going to meet at a specific location, you can go put in a location, but it's completely up to you. The example that I see here is somebody, I was working with a client who had a very rural book of business, and they were kind of heading out kind of middle of nowhere. They didn't have a ton of reception. So they always went ahead and put their location of the address that they needed to be in. And then they went ahead and printed out their activity details on a daily basis to figure out where they were going to go head to. Now, the other options that we have here is we have importance, which I'm going to go ahead and select as high. You have low or normal, but just as I create it and we see it on the calendar, I want to be able to see what that looks like. Priority is going to be 1 through 6. It's going to be completely up to you on how you use this. So if I wanted to say, I've seen people say, use priority as, one day it needs to be done this today, or it needs to be done in 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. And then as those adjust, they go ahead and adjust the activities. So if they don't get it done, they can roll it over or whatnot. So we'll go ahead and just put a 3 here just to show you again as an example. We have a completion. Completely up to you on how you all use this, but it's nice to kind of, if you're using activities to see yourself through a whole process, maybe you're onboarding, right? And you're talking to, meeting with them 2 or 3 times, a client 2 or 3 times, you can go ahead and, kind of figure out where you're at within that process. However, one thing to note here is that even if I put 100%, it will not complete the activity. Now, as I move down, we have this giant description box right here. This is, you can use this a number of different ways, and I will give you what I've seen, and also what we think is best to utilize this area for. A lot of users want to put their notes from the meeting, right? They meet with Corey. It looked great. Corey says, "Hey, I'd like to increase it to a 20-year term for $500,000. Great, going to be a good commission coming my way." But that may not be where you want to put your meeting notes. So I wouldn't write out, Corey is moving forward, right? I don't want to do that. And the reason why is because when I go ahead and save this activity, or I save and complete this activity and I finish it, all of that information is going to stay right in this description. Where I want to put meeting notes is I want to put them over here on the right hand side under link notes. And the reason why is because I'll have content for within this activity, but also the link note will actually save to his contact record. So if I go ahead and open up his contact record and I hit link note over here on the right hand side, and I drop in Corey is moving forward, maybe give it a category of business insurance, add the note. Now what's going to happen is it's going to link this. So I have a running dialogue of what happened through the activity. And then if I click into his contact record and I give it a quick refresh, you'll see that it already links to his contact record as well. So I'm only having to put the link note one time, and it's putting it in two different places. It's in the activity and on the contact record. The other reason is that I can go ahead and save and complete this activity with some contents here, and I can also uncomplete it and then go ahead and edit it. So there's no date, time, and user stamp to the description here. What I see you working best here is the agenda or the topics you want to go ahead and cover for this meeting, right? So I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, Corey said he has a baby boy. I'll put some notes in there, things that when he comes in, maybe either print this out or before he comes in, I take a look real briefly and I say, all right, these are the things that I want to talk about, right? So agenda or topics or anything that is not necessarily what the client provided to you, but more so what you are going to provide to the client is great for in this description box. Because again, comes down to compliance, date, time, user stamping, you're not going to go ahead and get any of that here. So as we scroll down, we have a ability to go ahead and notify a team member that this activity was created. So we can go ahead and send it to all the staff, or we can go ahead and select whatever team we already have created within our database. We have the ability to go ahead and change some privacy options. So if this is something that is more personal and you don't want to tell anybody that you're heading out, maybe you have a doctor's appointment and you want the time to be blocked off your calendar, but you don't necessarily want anybody to know what this is, entailing, you can go ahead and select a privacy option of just me or only the attendees or only this team, right? And then you would go ahead and select whatever team it is that you wanted. So for this one, I'm just going to leave it open. As we scroll down, we have repeats. So you can go ahead and set recurring activities on your calendar. So you can set the interval. I can say, hey, I want this to repeat, every week, right? So if you have maybe a sales meeting that happens every Monday, you can say, I want this to happen, every 1 week. And I want it to be on Monday, each Monday, right? And I can save the activity and then it'll go ahead and put this specific activity on the calendar every single Monday, every single week. Now, if you are going to do repeating activities, what I do recommend is that you always put an end to your activities because by default, the system will go ahead and put, good, 20 or 30 years worth of activities on your calendar. And we really we don't need that many, right? I don't need 20 or 30 years worth of Monday meetings. So what we recommend is just kind of, take a look and figure out, hey, if it's once a week, I'm going to put it out 1 year, because I may not need the same meeting next year, or my business can continue to grow and I need to maybe have this meeting twice a week, right? So there's no sense in just putting it one time. So just know that when you go ahead and put a repeat, make sure you have an end date to it, and you can go ahead and say on, and then you can give the actual date. It's a date picker here. You can go ahead and give the last date that you want this to end. Now, if that is the case, and you come up to the last day of this, or the last activity within the sequence, you will see a blue bar up here at the top, and it will show you that, hey, it'll notify you, hey, this is the last event in your sequence. You should probably go ahead and reschedule a new one. So it will actually notify you up there at the top that it is the last one, so that you can go ahead and do that. Now, as we continue on to the right-hand side, we move through everything. You're going to go ahead and see attendees. Now, this is very important because these are the people who are attending this event. And mainly, they're going to be users within the database who are going to be attending this event. So you'll see here, by default, I'm Tucker in this example. Tucker is automatically going to be attending this event. I created it. We're under the assumption that if you create it, you're going to be joining it. Now, if that is not the case, and maybe Tucker is the assistant and Tabitha is the advisor, what I can go ahead and do is I can go down to Tabitha. I can add Tabitha to the activity, or I can add as many users as I want. I can add Jack. I can go ahead and add, we'll add Haley here. So now I have 4 people for this meeting. Or what I also have the ability to do is remove people by hitting the action icon and saying remove from activity. So what I see here a lot is I see people going ahead and creating staff members creating an activity and then going ahead and removing themselves and only putting it on their advisor's calendar. So that is going to be a great way for you to go ahead and create the activity or the task or whatever it is. You can just go ahead and assign it to somebody else. So again, Tabitha is the advisor. I'll go ahead and remove myself. And then that way it's only going to sit on Tabitha's calendar. But I do want to have it on mine. So we'll go ahead and add it, Tucker back. Also, what we have here is we have the link contacts. These came over from that note that we had created. So again, just kind of helps out with that flow of I create a note, whatever happened, whatever transpired to get me to this activity, and I can go ahead and link both of those people coming over. So that way it's going to sit on both of their contact records so that from a history perspective, I can go ahead and see when they attended or whatnot. We saw the link notes. So link notes are going to come over. We can go ahead and continue to add those as we move through, whatever this activity is. We can link an account. So we can add, if, they talked about a specific account, we can go ahead and say, let's add this one. And let's go ahead and add, this other one down here at the bottom. Now there's 2 accounts. And the reason why this is important is as we go ahead and complete this activity and it becomes a note, that note will actually sit on that specific contact record, or excuse me, that account number or that account record. And we can go ahead and see what happened, or, why did we move money out or whatever it may be. We can see that from these notes. And one of the newer features within activities, we have linked documents. So if there's some paperwork that you need to go ahead and have filed, or maybe an application that needs to be sent off to the carrier, we can go ahead and drag and drop it here. And one thing to note here, this activity or this document that you're going to see here is going to maintain, or it's going to remain only in this activity. So you're going to want to make sure that you have the document somewhere else and it's stored somewhere that's compliant. Because this does not follow the worm rule and you will only be able to see it in this activity. So once we add that, we're good to go. Some other things that we have here is we can go ahead and we can check out a timeline. So, as I save this and I make adjustments, I can see the timeline. So we'll go ahead and save this activity. And we're going to get right back into it by going into Corey's latest, see, insurance planning meeting. And I can go down and I can click back into the timeline, and you'll see that I added Corey, I added Topanga, and I all did at pretty much exactly the same time. And then I updated by saving when at 11:22. So this is where you can kind of tell, who's doing what within this activity. Also, you'll see down here at the bottom, we have details created by Tucker McLaughlin. That's me. And we also have created on, which that's that date, time, and user stamp right there. We can go and then go ahead and save it, complete it. If we're completed the activity, we're all finished. And then again, it will date, time, and user stamp at the time of us completing it. So this is a very, very big suggestion that I can give you is as you're using activities, make sure that you go ahead and you complete the activity so that way you have that date, time, and user stamp. Now, once that's all good to go, we created activities, we understand how to go ahead and build them. Let's take a look at the calendar to kind of see how that works with activities. So the one that we created was May 10th. So let's go ahead and scroll down. I think we said May 10th there we go. So I only have one activity on there, but what you'll see if I hover over, it's going to say the subject. So life insurance planning meeting. You'll see that it has an exclamation point. That is because we set it as high priority. And then also you'll see the priority number as 3. We selected the 3. So you'll see that information right here within the calendar marker, or the activity on the calendar. Now I can just go ahead and click into this if I need to. Now, within that, we can go ahead at anytime I want to go ahead and add a new activity on the calendar. All I have to do is click the time that I'm looking for. You'll see that it populates the time, the date. I can select the type, the category, and then all I have to do is create a subject. And I also have the ability to go ahead and link a contact. So I can go ahead and create an activity right from the calendar and go ahead and give it a subject, and I'm good to go. I can hit create and edit. It's going to bring me back to the create activity screen, or I can just hit create activity and we'll actually just create it as is. Now, some other features that we have within the calendar, we can go ahead and navigate through the calendar by clicking the navigate. It's going to have a date picker. We can click this date up at the top, go back a couple years, go forward a couple years, or we can hit this today page. And it's going to go right back to today's date. When I had mentioned earlier about that all day section, this is where you're looking at right here. This is where I like to think of my tasks, things that I need to go ahead and get done, not necessarily at a specific time, but it just needs to get done sometime during the day. So you're here, I have the example of call Henry. I need to call Henry today. I put Marion Jones as well, but I need to call Henry at some time. I don't need to do it at 10:30 or whatever it may be. I just need to do it at some time. So it's more of a reminder. It's going to sit on my calendar that I need to get it done. So that's going to be the calendar. You have the ability to select from day view, week view, or month view. So this is going to be everything that's going on. You can go ahead and select which user you want to see, which calendar you want to see. So if you want to see some overlap, you can go ahead and select maybe Tabitha, Jack, and Mike here. And we can go to that week view and see if there's any overlap, which there's not. So that's good. So if we need to schedule a meeting, we can go ahead and that's not going to be a problem. Or we can select all of the users. So this is maybe an office admin wants to see everything. We can go ahead and take a look at all the users. Or we can unselect all of them and it's only going to select yourself. We had talked earlier about activity types and activity categories. Again, you can go ahead and search based off of them. So if you want to see just your client meetings, or maybe just meetings that are involving insurance, you can go ahead and select that. Last thing that I want to touch on here is that by default within your preferences, you can go ahead and select to see certain items on the calendar. So things like client review reminders, any seminars that you have scheduled, client birthdays. By default, you can go ahead and adjust those in the preferences. Whereas if you want to go ahead and adjust them and not necessarily change the default, but you want to go ahead and see, those seminars or whatever it may be, you can go ahead and go to actions and you can select, show seminars or, hide client reviews, right? So client reviews are going to go away, or I can go ahead and, hide workflows. So you'll see that workflow that I had there kind of went away. And again, that's just turning it off in that instance. It's not going to change the default. And then we also have the ability to print the calendar and take a look at and changing the colors. So I'm a big colorful guy. So my example, you'll see I have a lot of more bright colors. And so you can go ahead and do whatever you may want to do with those colors. But again, they are going to be they're going to be user specific. So how I see my colors is going to be different than the way that somebody else in my database will see them. So last couple things that I want to touch on are I want to go ahead and talk about if you don't necessarily like the calendar view, but you still want to use activities, very heavily, what you can go ahead and do is you can go to the today page and you can head over to this activities tab. So on the today screen, you're going to go ahead and say things to do today. So these are all the activities that you have going on today. From here, you can go ahead and hit the action icon. You can complete, reschedule, or you can go ahead and see the timeline of that. Or what you can do on the today page, you can go up to activities. And this is going to give you more of a list of everything that you have going on, whether it's past due, next 7 days, next 30 days, whatever it may be. You can go ahead and give more of a list view of everything that you have going on. So rather than going into reports, I can kind of just manipulate these filter dates, and I can pull up the data that I'm looking for. Now, what you'll see here, and if anybody's ever attended our Redtail University, you'll see we have some bad data here because we have a lot of uncompleted activities. And if there's going to be one thing that I can leave here today with, is that you all should be completing your activities as you complete them, or as soon as you can. And the reason why is because if you don't, right now I have an activity from October 17th, 2017. When I go ahead and click this complete right here, what's going to end up happening is going to date, time, and user stamp for today's date. And today's date is May 3rd, 2018. So this doesn't give me a whole lot of good information based off of when I opened up this life insurance policy, because I completed it today, not necessarily when I actually completed it, which was probably back on, October 17th or 18th, something like that. So again, you want to make sure that you're always completing your activities. So you can either do it here by hitting the action icon and hitting complete. You can go into the activity itself and you can hit save and complete. It's completely up to you, but I cannot recommend this enough. Please, please, please always make sure you're completing your activities as soon as you finish them. Now, if you have a giant list and you're like, oh no, that's going to be a lot, you can go ahead and check this box. By checking this box, activity options will go ahead and become available. And you can go ahead and hit complete, or you can reassign or roll over or delete, whatever it may be. You have the ability to go ahead and clean those up in bulk rather than going one by one by one. So just as a recommendation, go ahead and clean your activities as you go forward. Make sure that those are clean. You have that good data in there. Now, the last thing that I'm going to touch on is going to be the activities report. If you do have a big group, but you don't want to use this screen, you have the ability to go into reports, check out activities reports, and then activities by contact. There's two other available to you, which is activities assigned by you to others and activities assigned to you by others. So I always think of this as like maybe going on vacation. Somebody maybe gives you a couple activities while you're gone, just things that you need to follow up, in a couple weeks. You don't necessarily get notified based off of them, but you can go ahead and quickly run this report and see kind of who assigned you something while you were gone. But the one that I like the most is activities by contact. I can go ahead and click into this, and great option to go ahead and see everything that I have going on, whatever it may be, whatever the filter date that I want to go ahead and select. So I'll go ahead and select filter, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up, maybe a specific, say, show me all my meetings from, the first quarter of the year. Show me all of my, planning meetings or insurance meetings. What am I doing more of? I can go ahead and start taking all of the data that I'm recording through the activities and go ahead and pull up some sort of report with it. So you'll see we have a number of different filter options here. We can search by servicing advisor, writing advisor. We can search based off of the subject. I can search based off of the contact. This is going to pull contacts within the database. We have Corey Matthews. If there's something in the description that we remember that was in there, we can go ahead and search based off of that. And again, you go ahead and see, status, whether it's open or closed. There's just a number of different categories that we can go ahead and search based off of. But the newest thing that I want to touch on is the option to go ahead and clean up your activities from this report. So what you saw from the today page was I'd have to adjust those dates. Maybe we only want to get rid of certain things from this month to this month, maybe from everything that was in January to February. I can go ahead and filter that by saying, show me all my activities that were in, January 1st to February 31st. February 31st. January 31st. There we go. We'll get it. And then we can go down to apply filters. We can go, and now I only had 2 that whole month, right? And then from there, what you have, this is a new feature, is you can now have this checklist that you can check them, and activity options is now within the report section. So this kind of helps cleaning that up. So if I want to change the field in bulk, if I want to go ahead and complete them, if they're not already complete, I can go ahead and reassign, or I can go ahead and delete, whatever it may be, roll over, reschedule, whatever it may be. So this is the newest feature. One of the newer features that came out in the last sprint is that from the reports, the activities report, you can now go ahead and have a checkbox, so you can have the activity options available to you. So with that being said, that is going to be activities. I hope you guys learned a little bit about activities, or hopefully a lot of it. And if anybody who's currently using maybe something like Outlook or Google Calendar, and they're like, yeah, I can't get away from that, I really like it. Take a look at Redtail Calendar, because there's a lot of functionality there. And above all, this is here to kind of work all together, right? When I'm taking notes and I have contact information and I have things on my calendar, I can use all of this together to kind of make everything flow the way we intended it to be done. If you have any additional questions, you can always reach out to us at support@redtailtechnology.com, or you can give us a call at 1-800-206-5030, and we'll go ahead and help you out with whatever we can. Again, thank you for being Redtail customers, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.